and welcome back to another great episode of Secure Hub Podcast. Today, I have a pleasure of bringing you another great organization that, I feel need to be highlighted and brought out to the public a lot more, because we focus a lot on the older veteran, the active duty service member that needs assistance after deployment, but we really don't highlight the needs of the service member in regards to at home. Maybe when they get stationed in their first duty assignment, and let's just say they happen to go to Japan, and for the first time in their life, they're now removed of their support structure and their family. What can we do for those guys? And my good friend, Larry Jackson, is here today to talk about his foundation, Ben Jackson Foundation. Thank you so much for being here today, Larry. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Denny. I appreciate being on the show.
And I know that it's not talked about enough, and I want to give you the opportunity to just give us an introduction. Tell us about the origins of the organization, and just go ahead and take it away.
Sure. So I think it really started, I'm going to say almost, more than 5 years ago. My son, Ben, foundation is named after, he decided to enlist in the Air Force, and he, super shy kid, quiet kid, but really funny. He didn't really want to go to school, college, trying to do what a lot of other people do. It just wasn't for him. He was really interested in the Air Force, I think mostly because he liked planes, and Air Force bases have really good snowboarding. So that's kind of what
it's true.
Yeah. No, my wife took him on a trip out to visit the Air Force Academy, and I think he was more impressed by the surrounding terrain and the possibilities for snowboarding in Colorado. So that got him interested in the Air Force. And anyway, so he went into the Air Force 2016. Then he went through, basic training. He went through tech school, ended up being they call it aerospace propulsion, would be his AFSC, like an MOS. He got stationed with the 35th Fighter Wing in Misawa, Japan. And then he went over there, and that's a huge adjustment, really. They're 14 hours ahead of us, so I thought it would be easy to communicate given, all the tools available, with, I think we were, I don't even know, this is like, of course, pre-pandemic. So everybody wasn't used to that as much, but, we would do like FaceTime or whatever the case is. Mm-hmm. But it was really actually pretty hard given his like schedule and 14-hour time difference, and I'm working and everything going on. It felt like there was really only a couple of times per week that we were able to connect, And honestly, he had a pretty tough time with it. I think he got to Japan and it's like halfway around the world and didn't know anybody, and just like he was kind of down about the whole thing. Like eventually he got to a point where he met people and made a lot of friends and did a lot of cool things, and but it was an adjustment for sure. So anyway, I was traveling for work once, and he had messaged me. I travel for work a lot. So he messaged me and was like, "Hey, I'm thinking about coming home. Can you help me with the ticket?" Because, Japan to Wisconsin, where we live, that's $2,000 ticket. And that's really just Tokyo to Madison. And then he's got to get to Tokyo. So he's like, "I really want to come home, but that's a lot of money. Can you help me out?" So being that I traveled a lot, I had a bunch of airline miles. So I was basically able to get him I had plenty of miles to get him a ticket home. But, that's not everybody does travel all the time and has a bunch of spare miles and sitting around that they can use.
Yeah, and a lot of times people always like to chime in with, the Army and the military as a whole has space aid travel. And it's not the easiest system. It is not. They bill it as this remarkable easy way to get wherever you want to go. And it's not,
Right.
it's not user friendly. And the scheduling,
Right.
it's a nightmare.
Well, actually, what I thought you were going to say is most people don't even say that right away. Their first thing is like, oh, I thought the military paid for you to go home. Like, everybody thinks that. It's like, as a Navy veteran myself, I knew that wasn't the case, but like I'm constantly surprised how many people think that. And I will say, like, well, if the military's, I mean, if people are listening and they're not super familiar with the military, like if they're telling you to go somewhere, they'll pay for it. If you want to go home, it's just like any other job. I want to take vacation and go see my family somewhere. My employer's not paying for the flight, right? And then the other thing,
Twitter might have. Twitter might have.
Yeah. Well, sure, yeah. The other thing with Space A, it's like, okay, great. You can get a flight from Misawa, Japan to Seattle, and then you're on your own. Like getting from Seattle to Wisconsin, how do you buy a ticket from Seattle to Wisconsin when you're in E2, E3, and you don't even know that you're going to get on a plane? So much less getting back and not being AWOL, right?
AWOL, yeah. When the flights inevitably fall through.
Right. So yeah, I mean, we looked at that for like 5 minutes and we're like, that's not feasible, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I got him a ticket, and I was the only person that knew he was coming home. He wanted to make it a surprise to everybody. So I was just like, so I was like dealing with this for a month, just kind of like dying inside to tell somebody, but I didn't.
Yeah.
So I got him a ticket. As it turned out, I was traveling for work the same week, so I was able to work it out that his flight would land in Detroit around the same time my flight landed in Detroit, and then we got on the Detroit to Madison, Wisconsin flight together, which was cool. It's a funny story. Like I tried, like I flew enough that I was upgraded usually to a better seat. On this particular flight, I was upgraded to first class. I tried really hard to give him the first class ticket, but he just was not comfortable with that at all. He didn't want to. He just like, no, put me in row 37. So anyway, I tried, but he didn't. He wouldn't take it. So anyway, we got home, got to the airport, drove home, woke up. My youngest son in the middle of the night, he came down. He's like, "What are you doing here?" He was just more confused than anything. But we then woke up my wife and got her to come out and see him sitting in the living room, which I have a great video of.
Nice.
Anyway, so yeah, it was really almost like the perfect trip. Like he got to see just about everybody in, all of his friends, all of his family, pretty much, in 6 days in Wisconsin, we got to see a lot of people. So he was scheduled to be home a week. I ended up leaving to go on another work trip a few days before he left to California. So I was like, yeah, well, we were planning on doing a family vacation in July. So this was going to be like 3 months after. So I'm like, I'll just see you when you come back, right? Go on vacation. So he went back to Japan, and, about 7 weeks after that, I was at work, and two Air Force officers came to our door and told my wife that he was killed in an accident. And that was the last time, that last trip home, the perfect trip home, was the last time we ever saw him. And so, we had all kinds of people, supporting us and everything, and people donating money. We had no idea what it was going to be about. So we were trying to figure out what to do with that. How do we remember Ben? How do we honor him? How do we do something lasting? How do we do something that really had his personality in it? So my youngest son, again, we were kind of sitting around. We threw out a bunch of different ideas of what we could do. And he's like, well, Ben got to come home. What if we helped other people do that? It's like, that is actually a perfect idea. So that's basically what we did. We created the Ben Jackson Foundation, and the point of that is our mission is to help young people with their financially support them in covering their travel expenses when they come home on leave. because, as we've already covered, it can be super expensive. And, if you're stationed overseas, that's probably most of what you make in a month is
Oh,
what
yeah.
it would, take to get on a flight to come home. So that's kind of the inception of it. One of the things we remember him saying when he was home was that he said a lot of his friends in Japan were jealous because they could get the time off, like they could get the leave, they just couldn't afford the ticket to come back.
Yeah.
We basically just didn't want, we wanted to help people like Ben, families like us who had somebody stationed far away, and we don't want money to be a reason why they can't come back.
And that's honestly one of the major factors that can obviously help these individuals from doing something ridiculous. A lot of times as leaders, we don't understand how hard it is for young adults to leave the only normal life they've known, their parents, friends, the only life they really truly understood, and then be transported across the world to a base in a far off land. And while it's on base, it's very, it's easier to adjust, but you're still going to miss home. You're going to miss the normal things you like to do, and family. When you take all that away from somebody, put them in a new environment, and you introduce a whole lot of stress,
Mm-hmm.
the one thing that could help them and keep them from doing a lot of the stupid things, which is like the chronic drinking, the, going and staying out late past curfew, getting in trouble, it's being able to provide them easy access to get home. And we don't have that. And that's where your foundation comes in and is able to give somebody exactly what they need. Because mental health care is great.
Mm-hmm.
It's vital, but sometimes what an individual truly needs is just the ability to go home,
Mm-hmm.
be home with their family, especially at a young age. And that's something that we don't talk about. When you don't give them any other options than the drinking and the bad ideas come into play. Yeah. And that's what we see in a lot of these bases that are located halfway around the world.
Yeah.
There's a reason why every base in South Korea and in Japan, and even the ones in Europe have such issues with discipline and guys and gals getting in trouble with after hour shenanigans.
Yep.
It's just, we make it so difficult for them just to get a little bit of home and have that space and time to just breathe and be around people they love and care about. And I get it. Military, it's supposed to be your family, but that takes a long time to develop.
Yeah.
It takes a while to develop that cohesion. With your foundation today, how many individuals have you been able to help with situations like your son's?
So, 5. So we're basically 5 years in. Technically, we didn't even get our 501c3 till I think that December of 2018. So we're at we've given out, we call them ticket home awards. We've given out 438 so far.
Oh, wow. Holy
so yeah. So like not every one of those, it's a little bit like a scholarship was kind of our original idea. Like our original idea was you graduate from high school, you're going in the military, we give you this award, which you can use like a scholarship. So like once you get to where you're going and you want to come back, you can kind of cash it in. So basically I would say probably 70% of those have actually used them to this point, but then the others have it available to them when they do want to come home. And that is over, that represents over $300,000 at this point in financial assistance.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I never really thought, it's kind of astounding, really, especially when I think back to the beginning, even 2 years ago, and I should say most of that happened in the last 2 years. Like 2 years ago, we probably had a total of, I'm going to say like 80 to 100 applicants in our first 3 years of existence. And then May of 2021, like just almost exactly 2 years ago, or yeah, just about 2 years ago, everything kind of blew up. We that 1 month of May, we got 1,000 applications in 3 weeks.
Wow.
So basically, we went from saying yes to everybody that applied, because in the early days, we honestly had more money than we knew what to do with. Like we were hunting down people to apply to help them, right?
Let us help you.
Right. Damn it. Then everything kind of turned on a dime when like we get 1,000 applications in 3 weeks, and how do we pivot and go? Yeah. Everybody, we're saying yes to everyone. To now, we need to build a process to figure out who we can say yes to, and do that. So that was a big challenge. So yeah, I mean, even 2 years ago, the idea that we would have been able to give out over 430 awards, I mean, it seemed like eventually, but it didn't seem like it would happen this quickly. Yeah, and I think that was kind of the one of the struggles we had in the early going, right, is talking to people and making them understand. And in that, I mean, I'm even including the people that are like going in, that have already enlisted and haven't left yet, because they think once I get to where I'm going, I'll have a full-time income. I'll be fat, dumb, and happy. Life's going to be great. I can come on whenever I want. And I knew that wasn't going to be true. Like I knew the need. My wife knew the need. Like my friends that I was in the military with, we all knew that, there was a need out there. We just couldn't really prove it. Yeah. And then once what seemed like every base around the globe found out about us, that's when we started getting flooded with applications, and then there is a need.
Well, it's the stereotype and the idea that everybody just suffers through it. Mm-hmm. Well, not if you don't have to. If you don't have to, and maybe not everybody needs that. There's a lot of individuals that are ready and willing to just walk away and never go back home. But there are individuals, and we have to be open to that possibility. We have to provide those resources, because you never know. I know a lot of people that were homesick for months and months and months. And for me, it was like a great adventure. I never needed that. But I remember vividly seeing friends that, they came from really close-knit communities, close-knit families, close-knit small towns. And this was the first time they left home. The first time. And back then it wasn't, I think that we've gotten better, not only as a military, but as a society. But back then there wasn't a lot of heart. It was just shut up and deal with it. Shut up and hey, this is your family. Get used to it. But nowadays, I think we have, not only have we've grown and adapted and realized the need to kind of look at the individual, but now it's really a priority. Like, hey, if I can take care of Steve's going to be happier, better adjusted, and that's going to help the team as a whole. Mm-hmm. So yeah, let's figure out how we can get it home. Because we have so many different things, but people are still kind of just like, I don't really need to ask for help. It's that being able to ask for assistance, right, that we all have to overcome, and recognize that maybe the quiet new guy needs to just have somebody advocate for him, or just be told like, hey, we have this available. If you want to, take some time off, like you got leave, use it. Right. Because that's the other thing we always, and I know you probably dealt with the same thing, is we never took leave. Yeah. Like it just one of those things that just didn't happen.
Sometimes when you wanted to, you were basically, told no, which I'm sure still happens now. But,
yeah.
I mean, I was on an aircraft carrier. My ship was in port in St. Thomas, sitting at anchor while Ben was being delivered in Virginia. I asked to take leave, was told no. And it was just like, oh, well, guess I'm not going home. Yeah. And, I wasn't happy, but it, was kind of like, okay. I get it.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, what are you going to do?
Any other job would be like, what do you mean now?
Yeah. I mean, I knew what I was getting into, but I was also, I was also 20. I mean, I was 26 at the time. So older than, your average, like
Yep.
E2, E3 that is not used to this, and two, everybody comes from different situations. Like, um, there, there's some people, like you said, like it's not that big of a deal for them. But then on the other end of the spectrum, probably the one scenario that comes to mind is, we had somebody apply. So she left the Philippines 5 years ago to come to the United States for the specific purpose of enlisting in the Air Force to provide a better life for her family. She had not been home and seen her kids in 4 years.
Oof.
So we helped her out $1,000 to get a ticket from Nebraska to the Philippines to see her family, which she hadn't seen in years.
Yeah.
So that was that's a huge sacrifice, right? That she made for her family. So is it, I was, those kind of situations, it's just like, we can't say yes fast enough. Unfortunately, there's so many of those that there are some situations that we really want to say yes to that we just can't, we just don't have the funding. And sorry, the other thing I was going to mention too is talking about like people, like especially when you're that young and you're new, people don't want to go ask for help or approach their chain of command because they just don't think it's important enough. Like we've had people come to us and apply and say, we have this situation I'm dealing with at home. Can you help me out? And, we usually say if this is some sort of an emergency or some sort of an extenuating circumstance, to kind of circumvent the normal monthly approval process, have your chain of command reach out to us, let us know what's going on. We can expedite that. But they're just like, well, I didn't really want to bother them.
What's the response been when you do get in contact with somebody's chain of command? Has it been reasonable? Have you had good interactions?
So so on our application, we have a question: is this an emergency situation? If they say yes to that, it says, let us, please have someone in your chain of command contact us by phone or email or whatever the case is. And it's been pretty positive. I think several times they say yes, it's an emergency, and they don't ask the chain of command to reach out, or they just don't. We're not really sure how that happens or how where the breakdown was. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I would say the response has been pretty good. We've had depending upon the command, right? We've had anywhere from like an probably I'll say like an E6 to all the way up to a full colonel reach out to us. And, with an email saying, I'm trying to take care of my troops or whatever. And here's a situation. If there's anything you can do, they'll say like, yeah, we've looked at this and that. But because it's not an immediate, like there are things out there that for immediate family members, like Red Cross will help with certain situations. We don't really have any kind of parameters around what situations, because we never wanted this to necessarily be a needs-based or hardship-based thing. It was more, hey, thank you, you deserve to come home. That was it. Yeah. So we do get those kinds of scenarios, and we do look at that. But the response has been good, and we've definitely had people in the chain of command be very appreciative of what we've been able to do for their folks.
Yeah, that's great. That's great to hear. In my mind, I was ready to hear some horrible stories.
Yeah, I can't really think, like, I don't think there's ever been a situation, or I've ever heard of one. I'm sure there has been, but where they the chain of command's like not supported them going back for whatever reason. But then again, we might award somebody something and then, say, hey, this is here for you to use. You've officially been given this ticket home award. Then they still have to, take the leave and buy the ticket and all that stuff. So, I mean, it could be happening on the back end that we just don't know about. But I'd like to think that most people, and I know it's not true universally, of course, but like, I'd like to think most people, do look out for their people. But, and then we have like someone on our board of directors recently retired as a Chief Master Sergeant from the Air Force, in 30 years. And she kind of deals with all of that because she she can
talk the talk.
Yeah. So she knows what's going on and knows all the things that I used to know or maybe didn't know at one point. But so she's great at that. So we're lucky to have her on the team for sure.
And I have to ask because we're a mental health podcast. Going through your journey of loss and grief, going through this process, was developing the foundation and devoting yourself and making this like a passion project. How did that integrate with your own healing and your own mental health journey? Because I can only imagine. I've lost friends, brothers, but an intimate loss, a family member, your son, and then having this foundation be the in honor of him. How did you go about that, and how was it for you?
I'll be really, really honest with you, and I probably haven't even said this to too many people, but I mean, it has been an important thing for me. I felt driven to do it really since the beginning. Like we handed out our first award literally, almost like 7 weeks after Ben died. Like that's how quickly we kind of, because Matthew had a couple of his friends that were leaving, had joined the Navy, and we had them over to our house for the graduation party and wanted to say, hey, we're gonna do this for you. Like it was nothing more than like, yeah, we want to do this for you. Like we didn't have it all figured out, but we just said, yeah, this is our commitment to you. So I was really kind of wanting to do it early on. I've always said that it was it's kind of a healing thing for me, and I'm gonna contradict myself in a minute, I think, but it's always been something that I've been passionate about, and I think in some ways it just helped me feel connected to him still. Mm-hmm. Like just the fact that I have his name on my clothes, like we have merch and stuff like that. It just always feels like, it just a way to like, to feel his presence, to keep him around, or just stay connected to him.
Absolutely. It's the same reason why, so many of us carry the names of our brothers. But I think and I can only speculate, but the beauty that I see in it is not turning the sadness, the catastrophic loss into something that it is bittersweet. And we've in our society, we've gotten to the point where we want to just separate ourselves from grief and loss, and we don't want to acknowledge it. We don't want to live in it. But we have to understand the importance of bittersweet, the importance of understanding the longing, the recognition we should hold for the people we love. Mm-hmm. And it's not living in a world of being devastated, but it's living in a world of understanding of like, this is an honor of my son. This is something that, if I could have a perfect world, I'd want Ben to still be here. I'd want my son to be here, but this is the world I live in. And now my mission is integrated with him. So in a way, I'm still carrying the torch. We're still doing this together. And that's more powerful. A lot of us, when it comes to dealing with grief, and I can raise my hand, I haven't always dealt with it in the right way. We stay wrapped around the awful circumstance, the awful reasons things happened, or the horrible details, and we carry that with us, and we carry that. But that's not the way for us to move forward. I think it's not only a healthy way, but it's a beautiful way to honor and remember those by taking on a cause, by taking on a mission. And what you're doing, what you and your family are doing is just that. It's beautiful. It's hard, but hey, it's life. It's absolutely part of life. And you chose to do something that, yeah, some days I can only imagine that it is difficult, that it is hard.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a, for lack of a better word, a love-hate relationship, right? Because obviously we would give it all up in a second if they had my back, right?
Yeah.
So it's nice to, like, I think about the kind of person Ben was and how he helped others in various ways, and it just really feels to us like this is the kind of thing that he would appreciate.
Yeah.
I remember, there's a couple scenarios, just, thing, a personal memory of Ben, and then something that I didn't know until after he died, right? Like the one, and I think they both speak to his character and kind of why this mission fits. Mm-hmm. One is he had a friend of his that wanted to buy a car or something like that. And he's asked me, like, yeah, my friend wants to borrow $500. And, I know just from personal experience, being around the military, being around that age, I'm like,
yeah,
I don't know if that's a good idea. Don't think you're going to get your money back.
Yeah.
But, you do what you got to do. And, he gave his friend the $500 back, and I don't think he ever got his money back, but
yeah,
I think he first and foremost wanted to help his friend, right? Like,
yeah.
And, so that's kind of that sticks with me. Coincidentally, $500 is what we give somebody that's flying domestically, right? So it really is a coincidence. And then I think back too to, like, after he passed away, a friend of his reached out and she said, basically she said, Ben was my light through the darkness. He saved my life. And what happened was she had been assaulted sexually at tech school, and he was with her, helped her through, talking it through, helped her get counseling, helped her, kind of be there to encourage her to tell her family about it. And I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that, she probably would have committed suicide if he hadn't been there for her,
Yeah.
So that's a kind of, I think both of those kind of illustrate a bit of, what Ben was like, and why I think this is something that really is an appropriate mission, and I think about that, and Ben kind of inspired me to be as good as he was,
Yeah.
and to be more helpful, to look out for people who might be struggling, and to do things to help others. So in that way, he's I consider him a role model for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So.
Nope.
Shoot, I had something else I was going to say, but I kind of lost it there. All right.
That's okay, because it throws it right back to me. Yep. Going through all of this in your own journey, what did you learn about yourself? What did you discover as you were going through your grief process, building yourself back up, taking on, because you still have to do a different job. You're still providing for the family. But now you're taking on a cause. You're taking on a new mission. You're kind of having to put that hat back on of like, okay, well, I got to go back to like that military mentality. How was that for you?
In some ways it comes naturally. Like a lot of it, there are times when it's easy to do because I'm obviously super invested in it.
Yeah.
I want to, one of my deepest fears was that, and this was from a very early on after he died, and I was thinking about all of his friends reaching out to us and sharing all these memories. And in the back of my head, I'm thinking to myself, like, 5-10 years from now, how many of these people are going to remember that about Ben? How many people are going to remember Ben? Or how many of them are going to be like, oh yeah, there was this one guy that I think he died at some point. I don't know. So my deep, a fear that I've always had is like, is Ben going to be forgotten? So like part of this, I think, is just wanting, like I already said, to do something lasting, to keep his memory alive, to be able to tell his story, to talk about him and the kind of person that he was. Now, there are definitely times where it's not so easy, right? Where it's like, I don't feel like doing it. I don't feel like waking up at 5:30 in the morning and working on this before I do my day job, or working on it in the evenings or the weekends or whatever. Sometimes I just need to like walk away from it. But then there's those times again where I don't feel like doing it, but embrace the suck, get it done. and the people are now kind of depending on this. So then it's like, okay, don't want to do it, got to do it. People are counting on it, or, counting on me. So then you just do it, But then I think there's also that through that I've learned that I have to give myself permission to walk away from it for a while.
Yes.
Maybe this thing would grow a lot faster if I just put pedal to the metal and just made this something that I worked on every waking moment. But that's not good for me. That's not good for my family. That's not good for my other kids. That's not good for my wife, certainly. So I've learned to, like, when you can do it and you want to do it, you do it and you work on it. And when you need to walk away, that's okay.
Yeah, I would imagine that Ben would want you to take it with the same energy and enthusiasm that he would have if he was still here with you. Of like, hey, get the energy, Dad. Let's get to it. Mm-hmm. But hey, if you don't, it's totally cool if we chill for a day.
Right? Yeah.
And I've had to learn that with my own things, because like passion projects and something that you're deeply connected to. Like, you want to wake up at 4 a.m. and get going to it, but it's like, hey, like, you've got like 17 other tasks that need your attention. Mm-hmm. And some days, like, hey, I'm just going to meditate. I'm just going to do some mindful walking and be okay.
Yep. There's a,
because go ahead.
My wife is, and I met somebody after Ben died, and her son died by suicide when he was 14. Turns out they would have been they would have been in the same graduating class. They were at the same school. Ben was 20 when he died. Jacob was 14. But she told us the month that Jacob died June, I'm pretty sure. She just gives herself the whole month off of June, and she doesn't work on, because she started something that focuses on like teen and not just teen, but mental health. They created an app for to check in with, have other people check on them, or send out like, I'm not in a good place right now.
Yeah.
But she's given herself permission to just take a month off, just step away from it. And, I think once we get to a point where we have enough other people that can kind of keep things going, and we're getting to that point because we recently hired a part-time employee.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I think we'll look at doing something like that,
Yeah.
when we can. So I think that's a really good. I think that's a really good way to take care of yourself. Um, so yeah, I think that's something we'll probably look at doing.
No. Now, how do you guys generate the funds? What's the biggest? Do you guys do fundraisers? What's your like method for raising the funds to support the foundation?
Mm-hmm. Most of it, I mean, believe it or not, most of it, we have several recurring donors who give monthly. We have a few different organizations locally that help us. There's a local vineyard that every year, this is the third year in a row, they've uh, bottled a wine for us, and then they
Oh, wow.
do 600 bottles. We help design the logo for it, or the label for it, and then so the last couple of years have given us $6,000 that year. I mean, honestly, a lot of it just comes from like private individuals. We've just started getting into grant writing and started going through some grants. So that's haven't really hit on anything yet there, but I would say it's a combination of some small businesses and really individuals that want to help. People do some like donation matching to their payroll, like payroll deduction. Their companies will match their donations.
That's awesome.
It's really pretty grassroots, though, I would say.
And we can just go to the website to donate directly.
Yep. If you go to it's just benjacksonfoundation.org/donate. You can donate monthly or one time, whatever. You can put a comment on the donation wall if you want to. Should be pretty easy. It'll take you to another donation processor that we work with, but yeah,
that's awesome.
On the website there.
That's perfect. One more time, what's the name of the website?
benjacksonfoundation.org. And then there should be a big donate button in the upper right that you can use.
And if you're listening to this episode right now, in the episode description will be a link that will take you straight there. So do yourself a favor and for a moment, pause while you're listening to this and reflect back to when you were a young private airman or sailor, and reflect back to what it was like in that first duty station. You just arrived, you had a horrible haircut, probably had glasses, and nobody wanted to be your friend. And the people you love and everybody you care about is 5,000 miles away. Remember how horrible it was to see that first paycheck and realize you were getting paid nothing. Go back in time and feel that. Just sit in that feeling. That sucks.
Mm-hmm.
So do your past self a favor or pay it forward to a young airman and go donate today. Drop whatever you can, because that's going to go back to somebody that at some point, it was you. You were sitting there hoping that you could just go back home for a weekend. So yeah, help them out. Help the Ben Jackson Foundation today and help somebody get home. Because oftentimes that's what we need.
Mm-hmm.
Just need to see mom and dad and see our brothers, be around the community to help us get to where we're at. I can't thank you enough for being on here today. Before I let you go, though, you're not dismissed yet.
Okay.
I want to ask you, going through your journey and seeing where you're at now, and grief is it's not a fun thing. It can kick our ass, and I know it intimately. It can kick our ass one day, and the other day we can just feel fine. And there's different stages, and we feel them and go through them at different times. But today, what is one thing that helped you the most when dealing with your loss and having to be, still be a father, still be a husband? What is something that you relied on?
I think one thing that helped me is just understanding that you're going to have those times when you just feel it all. and that's okay. Like, and sometimes you just want to feel that. Like, there were days where I just like, I don't feel anything. I want to feel sad. Like, I want to feel,
Yeah.
I want those emotions, and it's not something to be afraid of, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just, and sometimes it's like what you need. There were days when, I mean, especially early on, when I felt guilty, and sometimes I still do. I felt guilty because I just lost my son. Why am I able to function right now? Like,
Yeah.
what's wrong with me? You know, why am I not curled up in the fetal position?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, you do what you have to do. And sometimes, especially as men, I think we can compartmentalize those things and put those feelings in a box for a little while, and
for a long time. Come to find out,
right? Yeah, and that was going to be the other thing I was going to say. Like, I kind of alluded to it before. Like, sometimes I wonder if, you know, if doing all this with the foundation has prevented me from fully grieving or from fully processing it, you know, because maybe it's something I just you know, keep. This is turning into a therapy session. Sometimes it's something where I just like I do it to have something to do, or to like avoid thinking about or processing it. You know, I feel like I've processed it, and I feel like I'm doing okay with it, but I don't know. Every once in a while, I think maybe I've just been so busy with it that I haven't fully been able to really go through the grieving process and really dig into it. I don't know.
But you know, the beauty of that, we all go through that journey, how we need to go through it and process it. The way I process loss doesn't have to be the same way that somebody else goes through it. It doesn't have to be the same way. It doesn't look the same for everybody. The reality is, when we're ready to face certain things and we make time, whether, like, for me, I had to get help. I had to go see somebody that had the professional hat to help me understand how to grieve things properly. There was something that I was holding on to for a long time that I just needed help to process it the right way. And that's okay too. And it's your journey, and it can be a beautiful, messy, hell of a roller coaster ride. But what you're doing today, what you're doing right now with this foundation, honoring Ben and helping others, is beautiful. And I have to tell you, thank you for what you're doing, what you and your family chose to do, and for doing this wonderful mission, and being able to sit through the ugly side and being able to sit through the happy side, and just knowing that, hey, grief and processing it, it's different for all of us. And it just, as long as you're willing to wake up and continue trying, and when you're ready to process everything, you know where to go, you know who to reach out to, and knowing that you're not alone. You're never alone. As a service member, as a father, as a friend, you have people everywhere. And hey, if you absolutely need help, you got us, Security Halt. We're here every Thursday night, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Like, you can join in. But thank you, Larry, for being honest, being open, and sharing everything. Not only the amazing things you're doing, but the human side of it, because all of us can connect with you. All of us that have felt bittersweetness in life, loss and grief, and the struggle of doing something to remember the people that we love. That's a huge thing that connects all of us. As for a long time, I know that I wore the bracelets and had the t-shirts and carried people that were really close to me. And sometimes we need that, and it's okay. And it's also okay when you retire the KIA bracelets, and it's okay when you retire the t-shirts, because they're still with you. You still carry them in your heart, and their memory and who they are will never fade away, because they'll always be with us. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time.